don't have two good speakers coming. I'll tell you what, when I sat there, I'll talk a little bit later about what happened that day. It was in the evening that night when Representative Korbach gave that speech on the floor, and I was moved. Some of you here, I'm sure, were moved by that speech, and that resonates with what I just told you prior to his introduction. These are real people here. We joke about politicians, we joke about different things in our society, but we need to remember that when this country was founded, it was truly founded on we the people. And the one thing that I've learned most in my experience as president of Iowa Firearms Coalition, besides how great my wife is for taking care of 5 kids at home and enabling me to do the things that I need to do, is the fact that these people need we the people. They need us to be involved. They need us not just to go out in our routine, go to church, go to school, go to work, come home, turn on the tube, and not be active in government. We have the best system of government here in the United States of America and the entire world. And we need to be more responsible with it. Next up, a man who needs very little introduction, a strong, committed individual to Second Amendment rights for Iowans and Americans, Congressman Steve King.
Thank you all very much. What a great day for our Constitution. Here and every face tells a story. It tells a story back through the generations, and I so much appreciate Lance's speech and him redelivering that here for us today. And I look down at that Iowa flag that says, "Our liberties we prize and our rights we will maintain." And I think that it's only my theory. The reason that language is on that flag is because New Hampshire already beat us to the language that says, "Live free or die."
Yeah.
And all of our constitutional rights are subject to the people who oppose them redefining them away from us. In a court, perhaps in a legislature, in the culture of the United States, if we don't stand and keep redefining our constitutional rights, they will be defined away from us. That's our charge. And that's part of what we're doing here today is making sure that we are defining our constitutional rights to mean what they meant when the Founding Fathers established them and when that language was ratified.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, we have generation after generation that has put our hands on a gun and defended America and gone out and hunted for meat to put it on the table and defended their homestead against raiding marauders and thieves and practiced to make sure that they were ready when the time came when they had to use arms. All of that is part of our history and our lore. I learned to shoot with my grandmother's old single-shot beaten-up .410 that she used to shoot prairie chickens out in the grove, and they were only about 10 minutes from the time they hit the ground from the time they were in the skillet. And so I knew about that. She told me about that, and was born in 1885, lived to be 102 years old. She grew up around Civil War veterans, and I heard about those individuals that fought in the Civil War. I have a Bible of a great uncle John Richardson. It's a New Testament leather-bound shirt pocket-sized Bible that was presented to him, and it's written inside, on the eve of his departure for the war. And he carried it with him for 3 years and walked home safe and sound and alive 3 years to the day later. Our family knows about that because his cousin, my great-grandfather 5 times, was killed in the Civil War. All of his artifacts were lost. Not so with my great-uncle John Richardson. So grandmother taught me about those times, and I sat at her knee and listened. I learned to shoot with the shotgun that she shot prairie chickens with. So did our 3 grown sons. They learned to shoot with that same .410. Now, we are constitutionalists in my family, and we are optimists. Those three young sons, about the time they were freshmen, sophomore, and senior in high school, they were looking forward to the pheasant season, which always, when the air smells right and the dogs get their ears pricked up, you know that the season is around the corner, and they're talking about it and thinking about it. But they were out to football practice. And each year, up to that time, they always had this squabble about who was going to shoot which gun. Well, Grandma's 410 wasn't so popular. My father's 870 Remington that he bought new in 1951 and carried me out to the duck blind with it when I was only 2 years old. That was the preferred shotgun for them. They wanted to learn to shoot with Grandpa's shotgun. And so there's this squabble going on, an old beaten up 16 gauge Stevens, Dad's 870, one of mine, who's going to use what? And at football practice, youngest son, freshman at the time, Jeff, when it was a very windy day and two guys ran into each other, he took a knee in the side of his knee and it shattered his knee joint. And as he lay there on the ground, he pulled his pant up and his knee was swelling up like a melon. He had tears in his eyes. He knew what a bad knee looked like from one of his other brothers. His middle brother, Mick, came over. He was a sophomore. He's looking down at his brother in pain, and Jeff is holding his leg, and it's swelling up. And Jeff saw his bigger brother there, some help here. And there were some people standing around. And he said, Mick, what's it look like? What's it look like? And Mick looked at him and paused a little bit, and he said, looks like we don't have to fight over Grandpa's shotgun this year. So we're optimists and we're outdoors people. And they actually took Jeff out there on crutches and stood him at a ditch, and he could block the ditch, but he did get last choice on shotguns. And so our lives have gone on in that fashion. And we go out and we target shoot, and we're prepared for self-defense, and we hunt. But we need to remember, this Constitution wasn't written for target shooting. It wasn't written for self-defense. It wasn't written for hunting. It was written, as Lance Horbach said, to defend against tyranny, and I wrote down what he said: tyranny in government was the target of our founders. That's Sarah Palin's notepad. Tyranny in government was the target of our founders. That means that it is our responsibility, even if the left was right, even if all of the anti-gun people out there said, well, if we take all the guns away in America and go search every home and pull them out of your hands, even if that reduced violence in our streets by one murder, they would say it's worth it. You've all heard them say, well, it's worth it. We're going to take away your constitutional rights because it's worth the trade-off. That's their argument. I'd say we have to value this way. We have to stand for liberty, and we have to stand against tyranny in government. It is our charge, it's our responsibility, it's our duty, and it's been handed to us from God, and it's been passed to us through our founding fathers, and it shows up in the state motto of New Hampshire, live free or die, and it shows up in the Iowa motto, our liberties we prize and our rights we will maintain. This is not just a privilege or a constitutional responsibility, this is a constitutional right. This is a duty to defend our right to keep and bear arms. And we have to transfer this responsibility, this constitutional understanding, this heritage, and this duty to God and country to the next generations. That's going on here today. There's an intergenerational transfer of constitutional understanding and a duty to our children and our children's children to let them know the price that's been paid and the need for our Second Amendment rights. And so we've done that in my family back generations. My grandmother passed it to me sitting at her knee, and I shot the same shotgun. My father passed it to me by carrying me out to the duck blind and teaching me to shoot with Grandma's shotgun. And then my children learned it by learning to shoot with grandmother's 410 and their grandfathers, which they fought over. So as this goes on, growing up around it, safe, gun courses taught through the heritage of the family, that's something also that goes part and parcel. It's got to be safety. But I will just close with this little narrative on how intergenerational responsibilities and rights get passed along. A week ago Sunday, after church, all of our 3 sons and their kids and their wives all came out to our place, and the grandkids spill out off on the deck, and they go down and fight over the rope swing, and Megan sets the timer so they have to take turns, and there's not as much fighting that way. And the 3 pointing labs, the yellow one, the white one, and the black one, are competing for the tennis ball in a retrieval competition. And the grill is sitting there with wood, cooking over wood with the smoke rolling out of it. And I have to do an interview over the telephone. So it's a little loud with kids screaming, dogs barking, and all of this. So I went out on my back deck to get a little bit away from it, but the noise was still echoing through the house. So I've got my back to the house, and there's a little howl going on because there was a diaper being changed right behind me. But it's as good as I can get, and I'm as far away as I can get. And so I'm doing this interview over the telephone on Sunday afternoon, and what happens now? Well, 2 of my sons decided they're going to sight in a new rifle. So the crack of that rifle about every 15 or 30 seconds punctuates the interview that I'm doing over the radio, and that's the report that they get. The report of the rifle is the report they got from my back deck. And what was going on, that report of that rifle stirs our hearts because it connects us with our Constitution, our responsibilities, our outdoor recreation, but with our history and the price of blood and sacrifice that has shaped, informed, and protected this nation and hammered out the pillars of American exceptionalism. And it reminds us we are called upon to defend those rights in each generation in one way or another. Our job is to refurbish the pillars of American exceptionalism, and the way to do that is always revert to the Constitution. Look at those pillars of American exceptionalism, those beautiful marble pillars that the left takes a jackhammer to on a regular basis, and refurbish them and get that jackhammer out of their hands and put it into the hands of somebody that can manage it. That's all of us, the people you're going to hear from here today, who will go out every day, defend our Constitution, defend our Second Amendment rights, because without them, we have no rights. They would all be gone. Everybody here knows that. Pass it on to the next generation. That's what needs to happen.